Welcome to Karma Insights, your go-to source for problem solving and getting work done. I'm Swai Banigo, Principal Consultant at Karma Advisory, a boutique strategy consulting firm that's been shaping the landscape of business and technology since 2012. In today's episode, I'm joined by my colleague, Sergio De to discuss his insights and experiences from working with grant management systems. Well, Sergio, very nice to have you with us today. I think that, just to start off for people that aren't familiar with grant management systems and what they do, can you just give us some background into, what exactly are grant management systems?
Hi, Swai. Thanks for having me. It's great to be on here with you again. Uh, Grant management systems can be looked at in a few different ways. And depending on the scenario, the organization, and the goals and objectives of what the organization is trying to reach, there's different types of systems out there, right? So you have anything from out of the box systems that cover end to end everything you could possibly think of that would belong to grant management. And then you have piecemeal systems that cover specific areas and focus on certain components of the grant management process that may not be applicable in all situations. So most of the systems right now are SaaS software applications. There are a few out there that are still server centered applications that are home installed, but those are usually smaller, out of the box solutions for small nonprofits. The broader companies and the majority of the industry has really moved over to SaaS software. And again, depending on the level of automation, the level of complexity, and not only based on the organization itself, but also the policy of the funds and how they're supposed to be distributed. Those all impact the choices that determine what's the best software to use.
Great. So, these systems, can you tell us a bit about how, the actual function of managing grants has been impacted by introducing them, especially in terms of efficiency and effectiveness?
So if we go back in the day to before there were grant management specific systems, really what uh, people would do is, besides using, pen and paper, Excel spreadsheets, eventually, maybe homegrown databases. It was really when we look at what a grant management system is, it's a combination of workflow with case management, right? From there, you can add all types of automation to facilitate things. So these systems have really helped in both on the distribution side in automating some of the decision making when it comes to sending money out to groups or individuals, but also on the intake side where these tools actually help you in finding grants that are available and pertinent to your organization, and also help you to apply for them by providing templates or providing pre-worded language that is known to help in grant applications, right? So if you're looking at the grant application side, there are now databases of information where you can go and look for grants that apply to you. And then on the distribution side, you've got all this automation that didn't exist in the past, where you can apply a lot of controls and data management tools.
Great. Now, in terms of, handling reviews and the scoring process for applicants, I guess, what are the benefits of automating those functions?
Right. So that's a key part of any grant distribution process, right? And I do like to break things out. There's two key buckets when it comes to grant management. One is the grant application side, where you're an organization that's looking to funds to provide X service. And then there's the distribution where you're an organization, you have funds and you want to distribute them. You might want to be distributing them to other organizations that will then redistribute those funds, or you may be looking for individuals to distribute the money to based on sources of income that you already have, right? So making the decision as to where to distribute the money to in those funds is a pretty complex process. If you're looking at state or other government entities, there's a lot of policy involved, right? There's a lot of rules, a lot of regulations that have to be followed. And a lot of them are not only pertinent to the fund itself, but it's based on state and local laws, federal laws always come into play. So that's a whole set of complexity that needs to be managed and applied properly to any grant or set of funds that are on the government side. If you're looking at nonprofits, while there are rules and regulations, both at the state, municipal, and federal level, they're not quite as onerous. But regardless of which type of funding it is, the policies surrounding these funds tend to be very complicated. So automating that anywhere you can is extremely helpful because it saves a lot of time for one, and it also takes the element of human error out, right? And it, also emotions, right? There's no way that somebody with context can maybe get ahead of the line, right? Or somebody makes a mistake, hits the wrong keystroke, and something gets approved that shouldn't have been approved. Automating the process, putting in the right checks and balances in the beginning ensures that the funds are distributed correctly throughout the life of the grant. And as money comes in and out of the grant, and the life of the grant either it gets used up or gets extended, you don't have to worry about constantly monitoring that process because it's already built into the program.
Right. Now, in terms of communication, I mean, in what ways does having, a grant management system improve, interactions with grant makers, people seeking grants, and also the grant administrators?
So I mentioned before the idea of the key components of a software, of grant management software is the case management and the workflow. There is another piece to it, and that's the sort of a CRM component of it, right? And when I say CRM, I mean not only CRM as in individuals that might be applying, right, i.e. the customer, but also uh, organizations and individuals that might be providing funds. So if you're an organization that's applying and looking for funds through grants, there are programs out there to help you communicate with these groups, right? Outreach system or systems that have outreach components built into them. So you'll have some systems like, for example, Good Grants. One of its great benefits is the database that it has. It has a huge source of funds that you can look at and determine whether you qualify for them or not. They also sometimes help you in setting up where you put in your requirements and it matches you automatically to those funds and then provides the right contact information so that you can reach out to the right people. On the other side, if you're distributing funds, you want to stay in touch with these applicants. And this could be a cumbersome, time-consuming process that could go, anywhere from months to a year or more. So people could get lost in that, right? Especially if they're individuals that aren't familiar with applying for a grant. So staying in touch with them is critical, and these solutions are starting to become more intelligent when it comes to the CRM component, and they really ensure that you're staying in touch with either both grantors, those people that are providing money, or grantees, people that you might be sending money out to. And that's everything from automated emails, text messaging, telephony, connecting it to your phone systems, and then actual paper mail. A lot of these can be used through doing mail merges and sending blasts of communications out.
Great. Now, you mentioned before databases, and I guess everything is based on data now. So, I would imagine reporting analytics are a vital part of any grant management system. Can you elaborate, how these functions really support decision making and transparency?
Sure. So again, if you're looking at the grantor versus grantee sides of a grant management system, right? The database and the data that's in them help educate across the life of the grant. So if you're applying for funds, you want to make sure that you're reaching out to the right types of funds, right? Or grantors. You want to make sure that you're focusing your energy and your resources on looking for those sources of money that are applicable to you. You don't want to waste time on the ones that are just going to be automatically be a no. And on the other side, on the flip side, if you're a grantor, you also want to make sure that you narrow down your audience or people that will be applying or you'll consider for application to those that are relevant to the funds that you've made available. So this data that you have is both very helpful in the initial process to make sure that you're narrowing the scope of where you're applying your efforts to the right groups. But also as the fund matures, you learn from that and you use those analytics to fine tune the process and to identify either new sources of funds for those that are searching for funds or new audiences for those that are trying to reach out to potential grantees. So data and reporting are critical. I will say that in my opinion, right now where the industry is, reporting and analytics is not fully mature. I think right now the focus is on the CRM side, but I think we can definitely see a lot of growth on the reporting and analytics side. And certainly, whenever you're looking at a system, as long as it's able to connect to a good analytics tool, that'll provide most of the information that you would need.
All right, great. Well, just touching upon that, talking about, maturity of an organization. I guess, most of the time when you're implementing these systems, you get into an organization, they already have their own set infrastructure and technology. So, what are the key challenges and considerations when you think about integrating, a grant management system with existing technology?
That's a great question, right? And I think if I put on my general management consulting hat, whenever you go into an organization, all companies already have some systems in place, right? They have processes in place, right? And when you're coming in with um, a system that could potentially be disruptive to the organization, not disruptive in a bad way, but disruptive in the sense that it'll touch a lot of different parts of the organization. So there's a the it's a very broad area of the organization that needs to be looked at because the system will be affecting all of that. Um, all those things need to be taken into consideration, just like you would with any digital transformation project, right? So, having really good project management, really good understanding of what the requirements are, having a real clear map of the current state of the companies, not only their technology, but also their current processes, is critical in ensuring that when a decision is made of the right system to put into place, that it can be incorporated into what's already there and actually add value from the beginning and not disrupt the company or the organization in a way that basically turns people off of the system. And I think that's just a best practice when approaching any digital transformation implementation, as I'm sure you're familiar with. You don't want to just drop a system in there and hope for the best. You want to plan it, make sure that there's some transformation plans in place, there's change management in place, and there's some good review of the business processes that are in place.
Yes. And I think you touched upon something very important there. I mean, I guess one of the biggest decisions to make is customization versus standardization sometimes. I, well, how important is it, to customize, the solution, the grant management system to exactly meet, the organization's needs? And what does that like decision making process involve?
Wow, that's a great question. You know, Standardization and customization, I guess you can look at it as two sides of the same coin, right? Customization is always going to be required, and that's just the nature of the beast. So, whenever you're looking at a grant management system, it has to have some degree of customization. On the other hand, if you're a really small organization, with a handful of people that are working on it with with not a huge number of funds or complex policies, maybe something out of the box that doesn't have a lot of customization will work. But generally speaking, especially if you're looking at government, um, a larger enterprise type solution usually works better, and it will require some level of customization. The important thing to understand, I think, when looking at any technology really is how much of it meets the current needs of the business, and how much of it will need to be customized, not only because of the way the business works, but also what are the limitations of the system itself, right? And if you're starting to lean towards where you're seeing that customization is going to be a very big part of it, then maybe it's time to go back and take a look at the decision making process and selecting the software. Was the right software, right? And if it was the right software, why is there so much customization required, right? And does the system allow for the customization, or is it all custom development work where you're buying a system and then basically building a new system out of it because the system doesn't meet the requirements? And those are always tough questions when it comes to digital transformation. Um, and it's important to make sure that the right system is selected. And if the bottom line is that because of the design of the grant or the policies or the laws or the regulations that are impacting the way that the funds are distributed or managed, it might just be that a homegrown system is actually the best solution because instead of taking a system, breaking it, and recreating something over it, you can start from scratch with something clean. And various tools are out there that offer a lot of low code options for management, for creating these types of solutions.
Very true, very true. Difficult decisions to make. Well, thank you very much, Sergio, and thank everyone for joining us for Karma Insights. We hope you found our discussion with Sergio very insightful and informative. And until the next time, thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Why. It was great talking to you.